Hello and welcome back, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome Marina Petrov for another insightful discussion. This time, she's going to be sharing her top 3 tips for effective piano practice. Marina is an acclaimed pianist and teacher with a deep understanding of healthy piano technique and injury prevention. Now she's offering practical advice to help beginner pianists make the most of their practice sessions. Marina is also a member of the Adult Piano Beginners Facebook group and is an expert there, regularly giving advice to our members. Welcome, Marina. It's good to see you again and to hear your top 3 tips.
Yes, hello Marcel. Thank you for inviting me. Now today I would like to talk about these 3 tips for piano beginners because I read a lot of comments on the adult piano beginners group, and not what I have noticed that often adult beginners, especially adult beginners, but this is related to children beginners, so any piano beginners of any age, uh, uh, does not do the structure practicing, because I know we live in a time where we have hardly any time for anything, very busy lifestyles, most of us. Uh, and uh, 20 minutes practice, it's really not a lot, but still the things can be achieved if the practice is structured. So when I say achieved, it means that uh, 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 things can progress better. So you can see, one can see a progress on a daily basis. Now, within these 3 tips, what I am, so 20 minutes practice, it's the minimum really for for piano beginners. And what I think is essential uh, is that you practice your scales almost 1 octave when you start. They're absolutely crucial for your coordination, developing the essential thumb movement, which is going like this all the time when changing fingering position. And we start from very simple thing like C major scale uh, uh, to play in 1 octave from C till C and backward. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what many are not recommending or not even mentioning is that at first the beginner should be playing in non-legato. Non-legato is actually playing detached notes. And by you playing detached notes, you're gently lifting your wrist and hand when going to the next note. And this is so much easier to play at the very start than playing just legato. And therefore, uh, what we are developing through this detached movement is the release of the fingers after we played, and also it's the wrist movement and even the elbow movement to a certain extent. So we don't need to lift far away or something like that, just that we can go to the next note. While doing so, we need to, as I mentioned about the thumb, we need to do it to focus when changing finger position, uh, like 1, 2, 3, and then we put the thumb underneath, and then we do the next 5 and backwards. Yeah. So, for example, 3 times it's absolutely enough. It should take really less than about 1.5 minutes if you know, okay, I'm going doing this 3 times, like you're going in a swimming pool. Yes, I'm doing like 10 times up and down, or 20 times. And then the next stage is to play the same thing and trying to play legato, like walking fingers. Yeah. So again, 3 times. So altogether, 6 times right hand, 6 times left hand. Very when you're kind of at the very beginning, don't even try to do this attempt hands together. Um,
Mm.
Only after a couple of weeks, when you actually this coordination and the hand movement and everything else, and when the fingers have learned how to walk on the keyboard. So these easy steps, does not take a lot of time, but a lot of progress with coordination and hand movement, and therefore you're working on your piano technique. Because when we are working on this thumb movement as well, one will notice that if the wrist is too low, it's impossible to do it. Yes, because the wrist is supposed to be still, as many teachers are promoting while you're playing scales or chords or so on. The same I'm advising to do with chords, because we are playing non-legato. So when I say chords, I don't mean chords like three notes together straight away, like tonic chord and their inversions, but I mean broken C, E, G, then three together. So when we are doing broken, we're doing non-legato first and then together. Again, once like that in non-legato, once like that with legato, left, right, and then we finish our practice. Next stage, about pieces. Many of you, many of adult, in your group, I have noticed are trying hands together straight away to play even easy pieces when there is hands together. And I'm not advising it, because again, it has to do, coordination is very, very important. Then many of beginners learn quickly treble clef for some reason. I understand the reason is actually the melody lines are mainly written in treble clef, and somewhat many beginners are kind of learning quicker that treble clef, because the pieces are written mainly in treble clef, melody line, treble clef, and so on. And because of the books themselves, you have like in left hand, like 5 notes from middle C down, and there we go. And so bass clef is not learned properly. So I'm advising, like many other teachers as well, hands separately first. Yeah. And also so that's another tip. Yeah. So hands separately first.
Yeah.
Also try to incorporate at the same time sight reading. So for example, what means by sight reading? Because I know many of my students as well, even on a higher level than beginners, they have a problem with sight reading within the rhythm. So they sight read the notes, recognize the notes, but not in time. And that's what is crucial for sight reading, isn't it? Is the timing. But then to do that, you have to have a good perception of timing, and to work on your timing, to recognize rhythm, and to work on your rhythm skills. So therefore, I recommend a Parlato method before even attempting to play. So what is Parlato method? Again, that's some they are recommending this, maybe they call it differently, the way how I was taught a long time ago, many decades ago, is actually saying the notes to yourself in time. If you find that difficult to do, because many are kind of getting mixed up with quavers, don't count in this and the other, try to actually clap and count the rhythm in the right hand, then the rhythm in the left hand, then
And
say
so
the notes. Sorry?
would you be saying the letter names? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So first clap and count. Yes. Nothing. Don't say the notes. Then the next stage is saying the notes in time after you have established what kind of rhythm you need to play in either hand. And that's how we actually going to can improve much quicker. But again, what many students are doing, they're doing it only once. Oh, I'm good at it. Or twice. That's it. Try to do it on an everyday basis. So you're training your memory as well. Until it doesn't say, well, let's say for about 5 or 6 days. And then perhaps afterwards you don't need to do it because the piece is going to be learned. Because I assume that good students are practicing every day. Or at least 6 days a week or 5 days a week. So as often as possible, because I know.
Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say this is something that came up as a 40-piece challenge once upon a time on Facebook, and I took part as well as many others. It was to learn a piece, which was kind of below our skill level, not always below, but to learn a piece a week. But once you learn that piece, or as well as you could within the week, is to then move on to another piece, so that you were continually sight reading. Obviously, once you
Yes.
get to the learning stages, the sight reading kind of does then start to go a bit out of the window, because you're beginning to get to know the piece, and so you're no longer reading at sight. So it's constantly having fresh material to read.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, for example, what I do with my students. We are constantly trying to learn new pieces. And even when preparing for exam, for example, and so on, and playing pieces all over again, the sight reading different pieces are constantly on agenda. So, it is essential. Of course, not every student is the same. Some are lazier than others in learning the piece, but this is the idea. And the third tip within this 20 minutes, because as I said, everything what I'm actually promoting, we can do quite quickly. Once you do clap and count, once you say the notes, then try to practice your right hand, what I just mentioned. I don't know, 3 times minimum. That should be the minimum. And the same with left hand. Then, and it doesn't have to be the same day. The following day, do the same. It will go quicker. Then try to put hands together. At least maybe not the whole piece, but 4 bars that will do. And then the following day, another 4 bars, and so on. And the other thing as well that you could do within this 20-minute practice, especially when we have melody line, to incorporate developing your oral as well. So how we can, while practicing the piece, because it's not just oral, it's an understanding of the phrasing. I'm recommending as well singing.
Right.
Singing mainly is the melody line, because of course accompaniment it's a bit difficult to sing, yeah. So I'm advising a melody line, which is often, especially at the early stage, early composition, it's often in the right hand. So by singing, however, your voice, you don't have to have a perfect pitch for that and this and the other. Let's assume that you're alone in the room. Yes, and no one is listening to you, because I know many people are shy singing, and so some are humbling. But even if you're humble, while you're trying to play the same kind of melody line, you will notice that your voice, when you are ascending, is actually doing natural crescendo. Yes, we did. So when the melody line goes, the notes are going higher up and ascending within the melody line. The voice is actually doing crescendo, when descending is doing diminuendo. And
That's
that's the
right.
basic principle of the phrasing, even when it's not in the book, it's not written. Yeah, because it's very difficult to write every little phrase. By doing so, by you singing, you will notice those intervals as well, that I assume you can read, one can read about. Yeah, what kind of intervals? We have intervals, like fifth or quinta, or seconda, the second, and so on, which are closer to each other. So, of course, then, the larger the interval, the bigger the crescendo, and then decrescendo. And sometimes melody lines, even of 2 bars, have those intervals, and many melody lines. And in the book, there will be no dynamics as such, but we actually should create some form of dynamic to sound more natural, because the music have started from us, from the human beings, and from our voices. Later on, the instruments were developed. So what we are doing is actually copying these natural laws, incorporating within instrument, because instrument give us a different timbre, So and also this also improves a memory. So you're developing the memory, you start memorizing better. So therefore, these orals can help us with so many other things. So that's my tips, and that could be all done if structured practicing, like so, can be all done in 20 minutes. But as I said, if we stick with this, at the very beginning, if we stick with this kind of structured practicing, the results will be astonishing, and they will go much quicker than if not.
Great. Well, thank you. You know, a lot of people in the group actually do say they practice 2 hours in one stretch, and then they might not play again for a few days during because of time constraints and, you know, basically life getting in the way. What do you think of practice like that?
I don't think it's advisable,
No.
because I think most of people who are learning to play piano or developing piano skills know about reflexes. And to play piano or any other instrument for that matter, and piano is one of the most complex, well, all the keyboard instruments like organ and so on, they are quite complex for coordination. And if one is doing this, I had adult students like that who are practicing for 2 hours, you know, and then 5 days no. This is not very fruitful practice, because this reflex cannot be achieved. These reflexes, because the reflex within, you know, for example, we are talking scales, so all these different tasks, you have to develop a reflex. So when you're playing a piece, because what one has to understand, it's not like typing. It's not only fingers. This is what I started our conversation today with: this non-legato, legato, wrist movement, elbow movement. You know, the upper arm is also involved. The whole body, really, the upper body. But how about the pedal when it comes later on? I even didn't touch that. You know,
We've only got
because
3 tips to cover, but I think you've covered within the 3 tips. The main ones I'd say is obviously you are looking at number one, practicing regularly at around a minimum
absolutely.
20 minutes. As long as it's regular, then you're going to get benefits from that. And to include some technical work, which is scales and hands separates within that. The other thing was then hands separate practice, which I think is vital, but really it's just so that you can learn the parts and the individual lines, and you can see different lines of music and where those the counterpoint often goes, whereas actually you cannot always see that when you're trying to piece it together, hands together. Sight reading, I think, is very, very important as well. And if you include singing within that and the phrasing, you start to, I think, see the melodic line and learn to phrase. I particularly like your idea of rising the dynamic. As you sing more, you need more air, if you like, to actually put behind the notes. And so naturally, you might want to increase the tone there and diminish a bit the tone on the way down. Descending through notes, so at the end of a phrase perhaps. And so I think those are very valuable tips that we can all take something away from that. So thank you very much, Marina, for your
Thank
insights
you.
today, and
Thank you
see
for
you again.
having me. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks. Bye bye for now.